Happy Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another jam-packed daily market update. We're going to kick this one off by looking at Bo Hines' new position, or potentially one of them. Now, he left the White House and has found himself, surprisingly, at a crypto firm, which I think was quite obvious. The crypto firm that he's essentially an advisor to now is Tether, which I've gone against the grain and said I don't believe is going to collapse. There's many people out there that believe Tether is going to cause the next black swan event. I happen to think that that's not going to be the case. I happen to think actually Tether is very much part of the United States plan to dollar dominance via stablecoins and a technology. And I think Tether is a part of that. And actually, with Bo Hines going from the White House to Tether, my kind of thoughts on all this just become, I think, a little bit more relevant. Then we got some news from Scott Bessent. He's talking about blue-collar wage growth. People were betting pretty negatively on Trump's America. I think actually what we were saying about Trump's America being more positive economically than negative, certainly on the backdrop of continued money creation. It's hard to be negative on the prices of assets when they continue to inflate the money supply. It's really coming to fruition. He also talks about the Genius Act, and this is all over the past 24 hours. I'll quickly show you a little bit of TA. We're looking at those flags performing. There's been a breakout of the smaller one that we looked at. Ultimately, a perfect retest, setting us up for continuation. And then we're going to tackle something that more people should be talking about, and that is Cubic's performance in essentially being able to control the Monero network, which is a proof-of-work network. They certainly demonstrated what they say is a 51% attack. It was, I think, less than that. I don't think you quite needed the 51% to enable that takeover. But they did successfully reorganize a few blocks on their blockchain. Now, with Bitcoin, that is a threat. One that Cubic at their current sort of hash rate is nowhere near, but they have set their eyes on Dogecoin, another proof of work network. They're quite far away from it. You know, you're talking G hashes for Monero. This is all going to sound very alien, but we'll explain it all. You're talking petahashes with Dogecoin, and you're talking exahashes with Bitcoin. So they're nowhere near. Monero was low-hanging fruit. Of course, I think the ultimate goal here was to essentially say to Monero, look, you need something like us to stop this from happening again. And that's how they're going to gain kind of, I guess, vantage in the space by essentially, it's kind of mafia-y, right? You know, going and breaking the shop windows and then coming in and saying, look, you need our protection. But we will explain that because it does raise broader questions about sort of proof-of-work cryptocurrencies. Certainly the largest out there, Bitcoin. And I think a lot of Bitcoin maximalists, and I'm sympathetic to them in many regards. I think Bitcoin is very special, but it's not the only usage for a DLT. And I think anybody making that argument is quite frankly insane. It does bring a broad argument in regards to that this could actually happen, and Bitcoin maxis just refuse to believe that Bitcoin could ever have a 51% attack. It could, and that would be detrimental. So much so that actually BlackRock have that as a clause in their ETF, and that you know, they were looking at sort of quantum computing and the ramifications there. So let's get into it, guys. As always, from Bo Hines. He said, and look at his bio now, Tether. Thrilled to join Tether. Huge thanks to Paolo and the team for a warm welcome. Excited to help build an ecosystem for digital asset products that set the standard for compliance and innovation, empowering US consumers and reshaping our financial system. The best is yet to come. Tether appoints former White House Crypto Council Executive Director Bo Hines as a strategic advisor for the digital asset and US strategy. Now, we have gone against most of our peers, a lot of which we respect in regards to their overall opinions on the space, and said that Tether's not going anywhere. Because Tether is their plan. And it's a plan that was actually laid out by Peter Thiel many years ago in regards to how technologies can cause dollar dominance. Right now, I'm actually looking at a major downturn in the dollar from a price strength point of view against other currencies. I think this fits in with propagating the dollar more further afield, making it cheaper to enter, and ultimately enabling that. I think a weaker dollar affects that. That doesn't mean de-dollarization. That means easier access to dollarization through a weaker dollar. I discussed that with my patrons. There's a link in the description. Because if your dollar's going to go down, what does that ultimately mean for assets? That's the aspect we look at it as investors. But Tether isn't going anywhere. And actually, this is just another sort of, arrow in the quiver of Tether. Let's dive over to Scott Bessent's Twitter. He says, the ongoing boom in real blue-collar wage growth continues to power an economic revival, and wages are up 1.4% at an annualized rate. Under the President of the United States, we have seen the fastest increase ever recorded to start a new term in the last 60 years. This is rather interesting, and I think the reason I show this is because I think people got Trump's America rather wrong. And I think everybody had every right to look at Trump and kind of go, ooh, we need to be cautious. Markets don't like uncertainty. He certainly brought that uncertainty, just like with the tariffs. But what was the ultimate reality and resolve? A market crash, or somebody that obviously puts markets in high regards? And actually, Scott Bessent, arguably one of the best treasuries I think we've had thus far, and potentially going to be moving forwards due to his market experience. This is the global macro guy. You see other people using that terminology. No, that's Scott Bessent's terminology. He was the first global macro guy with George Soros and some of the other individuals there, and has a unbelievable experience when it comes to markets. And Trump's America is doing significantly better than I think most people thought it would. And that's why you're seeing the S&P just go on and make high after high after high. And actually engulf what the markets got wrong in terms of pricing, and we were on that side of being right on what the markets were going to do and recover. The markets got the whole tariff thing wrong. He also goes on to tweet, implementing the Genius Act is essential to securing America's leadership in digital assets. Stablecoins will expand dollar access for billions across the globe and lead to a surge in demand for US treasuries, which back stablecoins. A little bit of a switcheroo going on here, guys. It'll kind of give the poison pill to the world, if you will, through debt. It's a win-win for everybody involved: stablecoin issuers, stablecoin users, and US Treasury Department. Today, Treasury issued a request for comment required by the Genius Act, which furthers the administration's policy of supporting reasonable growth and use of digital assets, as outlined by President Trump's executive order, strengthening America's leadership in digital financial technologies. It's very interesting that this system, it's extremely ironic that this system was literally designed to combat the debt markets in the form of Bitcoin. It said, hang on, what are we doing this for? You know, why are we all a believer in something that they can just print and inflate and manipulate and do what they want with? Let's create an alternative system where the rules are fixed and you can't do that with it. And now distributed ledgers are doing more for essentially continued debt proliferation and what would be the right word here? Infringement, debt infringement on the world, than they are combating it. And, Roger Ver has some really good takes on that. Just a sort of side comment. You guys know the plan. Ignore the red. Don't even look at it, guys. Go and enjoy your summers, for goodness sake. You know, August, September aren't great months. We've got lots of technical confluence. I believe Bitcoin's going to over 300k. I did a video for Patreons on that. It's just been continuation pattern after continuation pattern that we've spotted. The last sort of continuation patterns we're looking at with these wedges. Bull flags. And all you've really done is come and retest this. Could be a bit of a sort of falling wedge setting up here. Got 3 impulses in that. Do go and do the falling wedge courses, guys, if you become a Patreon today. You might see a rally from Bitcoin today, all around sort of key technical support. Do look out for that, but the plan remains the same. Extremely bullish on the crypto space, whichever way technically I look at it. Of course, fundamentally, there's every reason to believe this technology is going to usher in a new financial era. Let's talk about some interesting news that not that many people have covered, and that is to do with Cubic. Now, Cubic performs a 51% Monero network takeover demonstration. Monero is a proof of, it's one of my first loves, Monero, actually, as a kind of libertarian. So what is Cubic? Cubic is built for purpose to host a fully on-chain decentralized AI model, AI Garth. To achieve that, the chain was designed to be extremely lightweight, running out of the RAM of its validators. Its function as its own operating system features involves quorum consensus and has the ability to utilize mining power for other purposes rather than wasting it on simple hashing, so useful proof of work, becoming the fastest certified blockchain in the world at 15 million transactions per second was not only a primary goal, but a byproduct of the architecture. As part of the useful proof of work design, Cubic needs to implemented the first stage of outsource computations and test it in the wild. And they've used that computation to essentially perform what they're saying is a 51% attack on Monero. I don't want to get into whether it is or not. Some people are saying it's more like 32% attack. But if we look at this, and the reason I bring this up is that if they can do this with Monero, there's no reason they can't do it. And they're already setting their sights on the likes of Dogecoin with other coins. They're a while off sort of hash rate. Monero has gigahashes, 5.3. Dogecoin has 2.1 petahash. And that is, a petahash is many multiples of gigahashes. And Bitcoin at exahashes is many multiples of petahashes. So they're a long way away from doing that. But it is interesting, and to see a kind of giant like Monero fall in this manner, because it's not fallen. They've not really done anything that malicious. They reorganized a few blocks just to sort of prove the equation. But to become victim of what Bitcoin theoretically could become victim of, I think is a kind of moment where the space needs to start paying attention. And we could do a whole video on how a Bitcoin 51% attack could be conducted. People just think you need to get to that mining power. You do ultimately, but you could also do that via orchestration of already existing miners. You could do that with sort of removing certain miners from the network for a period. There's a whole thing there that we're not going to get into. We're just going to report on this. So on Monday, the 11th of August, 2025, so 8 days ago, history was made as the Cubic protocol successfully completed its attempt to dominate the Monero network. After a month-long, high-stake technical confrontation, Quebec reached 51% of Monero's hash rate dominance. I'm not saying they did reach 51%. I think it was probably lower than that, and they didn't need 51% to conduct it. Successfully reorganizing the blockchain. This event marks the pivotal moment in the crypto industry, serving as the ultimate validation of Quebec's outsourced computations and useful proof of work. The experiment, the Monero mining initiative, began as a proof of concept. In its initial phases, Quebec split resources between mining Monero and training AI Garth. This approach proved highly profitable at one point because nearly 3 times more lucrative than direct Monero mining and attracting a torrent of new compute power to the network. The experiment was a strategic and, at the time, combative application of game theory. Previously, Cubic would sell all mined Monero for US dollars, then use the proceeds to buy and burn Cubic tokens to reduce the circulating supply. However, the Cubic community, through a decisive vote, chose to restructure this reward mechanism. It was decided that only 50% of the proceeds would be burned, with the remaining half distributed as extra bonuses to computers. Cubic's chain validators. This shift from token buybacks to direct rewards served as a powerful economic incentive that drew miners away from other Monero pools, fueling the takeover push. The process, the path to Monday's success was 2 parts. The first attempt at a pure 51% hash rate dominance was met with fierce resistance, including a substantial DDoS attack. We don't want to really explain what DDoS attacks are for the sake of this video. Quebec's infrastructure weathered for over a week. This hacker war highlighted the resilience of Quebec's decentralized network, which remains operational despite outages in Syria. The final successful push began on the 11th of August with the deployment of a sophisticated selfish mining strategy. This technical tactic, which proved effective with slightly less and at times more than 51% of the total hash rate, involved the cubic pool secretly mining blocks and withholding them. The sudden appearance of orphaned blocks on the Monero network in the days leading up to today was the telltale sign that cubic strategy was working. The tactic allowed the cubic pool to gain a disproportionate share of the block rewards and ultimately the network's consensus. That said, the team has decided not to take over the protocol's consensus for the moment because of internal discussions on whether that would hurt Monero's price. It absolutely would. It has already. A third-party data scientist will confirm the facts listed in the article per DCAT, the lead developer on the Monero experiment. So you go on to say, what now? With the takeover test now complete, the Monero network core functionality remains intact. Its speed, privacy, and usability have not been compromised. However, the end goal is for Monero's protocol security to be provided by the cubic miners. This way, the rewards would be funneled through the cubic pools, bringing higher profitability and creating a new, higher incentived landscape for Monero miners. There could be a silver lining in all this. It's one project kind of, it's very mafious, isn't it? Kind of going and breaking the windows and then essentially saying, look, we'll protect you, you know. The reason I highlight this is not only am I a lover of Monero, and it did affect the price. You know, you've seen kind of a bit of a cascade here. But also because there's a lot of proof of work protocols out there, and this is kind of a proof of work protocol that has been essentially taken over via a 51% attack. BlackRock have put essentially their thoughts on this. It outlines, for example, that assets pronounce price volatility and describe scenarios in which a 51% attack might unfold. They've actually got this in their IBIT filing. The thing is with Monero, and they're setting their eyes on Dogecoin now, is this is its hash rate, 5.38 gigahashes. Dogecoin has petahashes. And I can't quite remember just how many gigahashes go into a petahash, but it's quite a lot. And then Bitcoin is exahashes, which are a multiple of petahashes. So they're a long way from sort of attacking the bigger chains or successfully doing that. We'll see how this all unfolds, but proof of work does have some vulnerability, some chinks in its armor. We'll see. And I also am interested to find out what happens with Monero now. Do they adopt this and ultimately, do we see something very interesting coming out of Monero on the back end of all of this? So just something I want to share. It does really beg the question. Like I said, here's an article here. Cubic community, Monero's 51% attackers votes to target Dogecoin next. Now that's interesting. I don't really know how all of this is going to play out. I think they're probably quite far away. You know, getting 51% of a 5.38 gigahash rate compared to 2.1 petahashes is you're miles off. And then for Bitcoin, I mean, it's not even in the question from these individuals. But it does raise questions more around proof of work and what sort of things we should be paying attention to moving forwards. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. An interesting concept and interesting things to talk about towards the end of the video. Stay bullish, guys. There's every reason to be bullish on this entire industry. Don't get shaken out on volatile days and lackluster days. That's it from me, guys. I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks for watching, guys. See you soon.